This video was brought to you by the generosity of my supporters on Ko-fi. Thank you for supporting the channel. Hello, my lovelies. My name's Dolthalion, and the plan for today is to show you my process for enlarging a doublet pattern and turning it into a mock-up. I'm going to be working with the doublet pattern from the Tudor tailor, and yes, this is the next stage of preparation for Aziraphale, but I have it in mind for something else that you're going to get to see first, so stay tuned for that. When I enlarged the pattern for the trunk hose, I did it digitally, which has some advantages and some disadvantages. On the one hand, it's a faff, trying to get the right percentage to enlarge it, and it also takes a while to stick it all together. It's also less precise because the lines themselves have been enlarged, so they're much wider than they should be. But on the other hand, you don't have to map it all out individually, which can be especially great if you're mathematically challenged like I am. However, since I'd never tried enlarging a pattern by hand before, I thought I'd give it a go so I could compare the two methods. Now, when I say I'm mathematically challenged, I have dyscalculia, which is like dyslexia, but more on the numbers side of things. I can't read clocks, I can't tell left from right, and I quite often mix up the order of numbers when I'm reading them out loud, which is especially great when you're learning a language like German, which likes to do 6 and 20 rather than 26. And one of the things that I find particularly tricky is reading grids, so I knew that this was going to be particularly difficult for me. However, like all tricky things, it's worth trying just so that you have tried and you know how it works. Because you never know just how tricky it is and whether it'll be worth it or not. So let's have a look at how I did. I'm using wrapping paper for this because it was being sold off for 29 cents a roll the last time the shops were open before Christmas, so I brought a load of it and I'm already thinking I should have brought more. The problem with being this cheap is that it's very thin and liable to tear. You can see I already had to put masking tape over a section I put my ruler through, and that I got to spend a while putting a grid on it before I started anything else. So that was fun. Once that was done though, I could really get started. I made my grid so it would match 1-to-1 from the grid in the book, which did make things a lot easier. To start off, I square off the pattern piece so I can mark out the space that it's meant to be contained within. Then I find a corner of the pattern that's in an easy place to start with. On the corner of a square is ideal, but in the middle or the middle of one of the edges also works well. And then I work out from there, finding points along the edge of the pattern piece that intersect with corners or midlines of squares, or obvious points where the angle or degree of the pattern changes. You'll notice I don't have a flexible ruler. I'm pretty good at freehanding smooth curves, but I do try and mark as many points along the curve as I can manage to make sure that it stays as smooth as possible. The trickiest parts are marks, which often don't have that much to relate to, like the two for the end of the wings. These were the ones where I had to get the ruler out and actually try and measure where they went. It takes a lot of counting squares, and for me, counting and recounting, but I got there in the end. This front piece took 12 minutes to pattern out, and I did the whole pattern in a day, including setting up my grids and without any edits to the pattern. And another side effect of using cheap wrapping paper, I needed to iron them to stop them from rolling up. This was just a case of a very low heat and remembering to turn the steam off. That actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, which was quite nice because I've been avoiding doing it that way because I thought it was going to be a nightmare. I did have to do a lot of working out on the paper, so I'm very glad I printed this off, but you can see where I've had to count them down. I've also gone ahead and done some measurements. So I've measured, for example, the sleeve thigh, how big that is, and how big it is underneath the sleeve thigh, so around my ribs. And it's actually a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I think I'm actually going to be able to get away with minor alterations, which is in the end what I had to do on the trunk hose as well. Slash and spread is a relatively simple method, and there are videos just focusing on it, but the main principle is to cut a straight line and then to spread the pieces apart as far as you need them, and to use another piece of paper to secure them to. Either the line can be spread straight, so the same distance along the cut, if you need additions along the whole length of the piece, or on a diagonal if, for example, you need extra space around the waist but not around the neckline. It can also be done horizontally if you need more length, and you can overlap the pieces if you need to take space out rather than add it in. I normally keep any offcuts of paper from patterning to use for this. If you have a lot of space to add, it should be spread across lots of cuts over the length of the piece rather than in one place, or it will distort the pattern. Once my first set of adjustments were made, I set about cutting my first version and pinning it together to try it on. I haven't actually sewn this together yet, it's just pinned, but very clearly this is not going to work, which is annoying because I did measure it and got out my tape measure and everything. I don't think 1 centimetre is gonna, bearing in mind this has a seam on it as well, I don't think 1 centimetre is going to make the difference. I think I'm gonna need more than that. So I have 2 options. I can either sew this without the seam allowance, just do it on 1/2 centimetre, which would give me an extra 2 centimetres, or I take it apart and try and put an extra piece in now. I could piece it, that is an option, that would save me some fabric, but I brought this fabric to be used for this, so I think I'm going to just add another couple of centimetres, cut it out again and start afresh. I'm going to try the sleeve first though, because I haven't tried that yet, and I think the sleeve might be okay. We shall see. I mean, aside from anything else, I feel like this would make a really good waistcoat pattern. Try to was better. It does close now. I'm not sure if it would button, especially with all the padding underneath, but it does close. But I did the smart thing and actually put the seam on the back. So I'm going to let that out by another centimetre, and then I think even with the padding this will work, hopefully. We shall see. I might be a very snug Aziraphale, but I'm very snug as it is, so I think I'm happy with where this falls on the back as well. That's my natural waist, so that feels like a good place. So I'm going to try and sew this together and then try it on for real, but with the extra centimetre in the back. Because once I've sewn this together, I can then try putting the skirts on as well, which will give me a better feel for the length. And then try it on with the hose and see if I need to add any length to it at all, or if that's okay, because at the moment I've just been checking the width and I haven't checked the length at all. in theory, the length should be fine because it's for a longer man than me. But one thing that you guys probably haven't noticed, that I've never really mentioned, is that I have a very long torso and very short legs. My torso is almost as long as my legs. So if it's made for a guy who's 2 inches taller than me, my torso actually might be the right length. And this is definitely, I mean, my natural waist is there. So it's not hitting it on the sides, but on the back it is hitting it. So I need to double check, but I think that's about right. So yes, I'm going to sew this with the extra centimetre in the back, which will make it 2 centimetres, which will mean I've definitely got enough space to cover the fluff, even with all the padding. And then I can try with the sleeves and try with the skirts and see how it goes. Just to show you guys as well, this is where I'm up to on pattern changes. So I've got the initial 1 centimetre in here, and then a second one that I did because I wanted just a little bit more space there, which did work perfectly. And then here I've kept it the same length at the top, but given myself an extra 2 centimetres on the bottom. So on the pressure point, which was across here, I've got that extra 2 centimetres. What I could have done is gone back to the book and done the additional thing, which actually adds in a little bit over the belly anyway, but I'm lazy and that would have involved putting the grid back in, so we're doing it this way instead, and that's the mess that it makes on the back. Okay, first attempt at actually sewing one up went okay. I added quite a lot on the seam allowance because I remembered that I need to button this closed. So this has actually gone back to more or less what I thought originally, which was that it would need to have quite a lot added. I think I was right there. I have also remembered that I need to put the padding in. I am allowing for that, but obviously it's quite hard to test that right now. The seams have shifted quite a lot on the back. I need to double check the placement and see if I'm happy on them, because if not, I will take less out of the back and more out of the front. They're coming down behind. Well, I certainly need to take more out of the neckline to start off with anyway, so that's the next thing to test, is to double check that and then to readjust the pattern and to try for a third time and see if third time is the charm. I'm not doing too badly though, so we'll see how this goes. Hello friends, this is where we're currently up to on patterning. So this is go 3 or 4. I've cut out 3 fabric versions, but I've done a little bit more fiddling on these as well, so I think it's 4th pattern, 3rd fabric pattern, I don't know. Anyway, we're a ways through, and these 2 main pieces are now done, or like 90% done. I did have these 2 matched up, but they went a little bit awry when I adjusted the curve on this, so they need to be adjusted again. But I've adjusted the shoulders so that they fit to one another, the neckline fits and the armhole fits, except for that one bit there. So these 2 pieces are 90% done. I'm just going to fix that little corner. So for reference, this is where I've come from. Obviously, these two aren't even the original pattern because they've already got quite a lot added in, so I did have to add in quite a lot in the end, but as we know, I'm soft. I've also lengthened it a little bit because I was getting too much of a builder's mom at the back. I am not 100% happy with that because it's a little bit lower than I would like, but decency. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So the next job is to adjust all of the little bits, so the collar, the front facing, and the wings. The sleeves I have also done. So this is my current mock-up with sleeve, as you can see. Obviously the sleeve is now smaller than it is in comparison than the original because I haven't had to touch the sleeve. I don't really mind. That means less gathering to do. It's gonna get covered up by the wing. It means there's a little bit more less poof at the top. I think I can handle that. So yeah, sleeve I haven't had to do anything. It's even the right length, which is honestly shocking. Actually, that's not true. I might need to take out a little tiny bit in the length, but it's not enough to bother adjusting it for. If I really wanted to, I could probably bring the shoulders forward. The only reason I'm not is because I've already muddled with the pattern so much. Trying to keep it authentic is a bit like I've kept the proportions, but except for at the back, but the shoulders are staying back. Maybe in future versions I will adjust it, I'm not sure. I'm pretty happy with this process. I'm going to get on with adjusting all of those little bits, the wings and the collars and the skirts, and I will show you how I do them because I'm not going to be doing them from the book. I'm going to be doing them from the pattern that I've got to make sure that they fit to there. So let's get on with that, shall we? Okay, so this is my wing piece. This is the piece of fabric that goes over the top of the shoulder, and this has already been expanded from the original expansion, but I've done quite a lot of expansion since then, so I need to redo this. I could expand it further by cutting it on either side in the middle, but because it's got to go quite a long way, and because I want it to be symmetrical, which I didn't bother to do originally, I'm going to just completely redo it. So the first thing that I need to know is how long it is, and to do that I'm going to measure on my other pattern pieces and find out how large the armhole is to the two wing points. And with my measurement taken, I can take a spare piece of paper and draw a line on it. I also know that this is 3 inches wide, so I need to make sure that I've got at least 1.5 inches on either side to actually do the curve on. So here is my straight line. It doesn't matter if it's actually straight and parallel to the paper because that is what I'm going to be working from now on. And I need to measure out how long it's going to be. So 51 centimeters in my case because I'm soft, and then I need the middle point as well, so obviously half of 51 is 25.5, which is there, and then with the midpoint I can then measure the width of it on here as well, so that's going to be 1.5 centimeters on either side, making it 3 inches. And now what I need to do is draw a curve from here to here and across the other side. A normal person would use a curved ruler at this point, but I don't have one, so that's not going to happen. And also, because I want it symmetrical, I'm going to have to fold it, so I only actually need to do one curve. So now that I've got my curve here, I'm going to cut out my rectangle, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again, and cut out this, which means that the other 3 sides will be perfectly symmetrical to it. So this is the front skirt, which I have just checked and it actually fits pretty well to this, I assume because I've had to add this big fat piece in the bottom. I'm going to do this the slash and spread way, which is what I've already used on it, but just make it a little bit larger. So at the moment I've added 1 centimetre, and I'm just going to do exactly the same thing and add 1.5 this time. And with all of my adjustments made, I could do one more mock-up, this time with both sleeves and the wing set in. Okay, I did one last round of alterations because I just can't stop myself. I've moved the shoulders forward, which definitely helps. They are in the right place now, which does in fact help. As you can see, the sleeves, can you see? The sleeves are just a little bit too long at the moment, but that's fine because I can sort that out when I get there. I am going to put the skirts on this for the first time so I can see where those fall to make sure that I'm not going to have a huge gap between my trunk hose. And if that works out, then this is good to go. Which meant it was back to the sewing machine for one last go, putting on not just the skirts, but the front facing and the collar so that I could check those as well. So, here we are. One finished doublet. Mock-up. Mock-up. Definitely a mock-up. As you can see by the raw edges, because I didn't want to deal with these. I'm pretty happy with it. I think there will need to be a couple of tweaks with the neckline, maybe? It's very hard to tell with stuff like that. I'm probably going to ask my wife for a second opinion before I actually do anything with it, but I can close it, which is always useful. It's long enough that it will cover my back, which is also useful. Sleeves fit nicely. Yeah, even though it was quite a long mock-up process and I had to do quite a few of them, the reason you do them is so that you don't do it with the expensive fabric. And then at the end you get something that actually fits and should be relatively easy to make, touch wood. But yeah, this is what we're going with. And that's it. The entire process took about a week and about 3 copies of the doublet cut out from my mock-up fabric. Not all of those were complete versions or even sewn together. As you saw, I didn't get the sewing machine out until round 2, and I didn't put the skirts and all the extra stuff on until the very final version. I'm really looking forward to putting it together now. As you saw, it's got a really nice shape to it. As I mentioned, I'm really thinking about turning it into a waistcoat pattern as well. I guess that would kind of be like the menswear version of history bounding. It's a shame I'm not fancy enough to pull it off, but I might give it a go. Let's see how it goes. Like I said, it turned out that enlarging it by hand was a lot easier than I feared, so I'm really glad that I did decide to have a go at it. I did need to make a lot of notes as I was going and to double check what I was doing a lot, so I'm pretty sure that for most people it would be a lot quicker than it was for me. that front piece that I did on camera, for example, took me 12 minutes. So when you factor in enlarging everything on the computer by trial and error, and then printing it off and sticking it all together, I'm not sure whether it's faster or slower. I do think it depends on the number of pieces that you have. Obviously, if you don't have very many pieces and they're quite simple, it's probably quicker to do it by hand. But if it's a lot of really complicated pieces, then I would probably still do it digitally, because that would save me a lot of time and stress, aside from anything else. I'm going to be using this pattern twice in the coming months, one of which you should see very shortly, but the other one will take a while. However, I am going to get there. It is another step forward in Aziraphale, and I'm very much looking forward to tackling this by hand, but I'm also very glad that I get to try it out by machine first. But the main thing I'm looking forward to is being able to wear Aziraphale properly with a doublet to attach the trunk hose to, so they don't fall down every time that I walk. It's going to be very exciting. As for the secret project, well, it's currently sitting in a pile behind the camera ready for the next stage. So definitely keep an eye out for that one. My question for you today is there a particular technique that you've been putting off trying? Are you waiting for your skills to improve, or to pick up the right tool for it, or just to find the right project to try it on? Whatever it is, I hope you get a chance to try it soon. Sometimes trying a new thing is an absolute disaster, but sometimes you try it out and go, what was I waiting for? This is great, I'm going to use this on everything now. But trying new things is how we grow and improve, so even if it does turn out a disaster, you've learned something along the way, and that's going to help you with the next project. Thank you for watching through to the end, and as always, a huge thank you to all of my lovely subscribers and all of my very generous coffee donators. If you enjoyed this or found it helpful, please think about giving me a like or subscribing if you're not already for more sewing and costume related content, or donating to my coffee if you're able. Stay safe, stay sensible, and I shall see you again soon. Bye! That 6 is not the right way round. Do I at least get points for attempting to draw it upside down? Maybe. You're ready to see my bum. Look at me bum. Look at me bum. Don't know why I'm showing you all my bum, but apparently I am.